So with that, we're going to just launch right into a couple of things here. And I thought it would be helpful. We had gotten some letters, both, and some of you might be surprised at this, we get positive letters and we get negative letters. But here was a letter that had some questions from Keith. And his first one was about Social Security. And Keith says, I have a sister that recently suffered a debilitating stroke at age 67, and she needs her monthly Social Security disability benefit. How will you work to assure that the current cuts to the SSA will not affect her timely payments and the administrative effectiveness of the Social Security Administration? So Keith, first and foremost, sorry to hear about your sister. My family, like a lot of families, has dealt with things like that. But we are here to help, and I would want to encourage you, if your sister, if she's a constituent of the 4th District as well, if she's having an issue or a problem, she can go to our website and get in contact with one of our caseworkers through the website, and we are able to help her navigate that if there is a problem. Now, you make sort of an assumption here about cuts to the SSA. There have been absolutely no actions that have taken place that are going to reduce anything with Social Security or Social Security benefits or SSI or anything else. There hasn't been a vote. There hasn't been a cut. There hasn't been an EO. There is nothing that would indicate that there is going to be anything that is going to be touching anyone's benefits at this. That is, now when you're asking about the effectiveness of the Social Security Administration, the administrative effectiveness, does somewhat beg the question is the Social Security Administration, along with IRS and a number of other federal agencies, are they actually efficient in delivering the services that they are supposed to deliver? Sadly, the answer to that oftentimes is no, they are not, which is one of the reasons why our office has to go in and be an interface in between the governmental agency and constituency. And so just so everybody is aware, we are helping hundreds of people with their casework, whether it's with Social Security, it could be a VA issue, could be an international adoption. It's a number of those things that we work on throughout the day, and the staff, primarily in the district, primarily those are the folks that are caseworkers that work on that, and they go to work every day trying to make sure that someone like your sister is getting what they need and what they deserve. So appreciate that, Keith. And then we're getting calls that are coming in. Sorry, through the calls we're getting those. But I'm just hitting on a couple of letters. By the way, I should just want to acknowledge we've gotten letters from Jack, Mary, Nancy, Keith, Lori, Margot, Joe, and Bob. We're reading those. I'm reading those. And these aren't necessarily folks that agree with me, but they're not necessarily folks that disagree. It's been a great mix. So I'm going to go to a letter that Joe and Bob had put out. And before we do that, please press *3 for a question, *3 if you have a question, *6 if you'd like to join the Huizenga Huddle. And Joe and Bob jointly write, why did you vote to cut $800 billion from Medicaid, which serves 72 million people? Have you no empathy for the vulnerable men, women, and children who may not live without this support? They then jump down to another series of questions here. Why are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid being slashed when the president and the GOP promised to preserve and protect them? And then I'm going to round out with this one. Why are you allowing Social Security funds, quote, earned benefits, of workers to be stolen from that trust? So we could do a full town hall just on this, but Joe and Bob and a number of others that frankly I've heard from over the years have similar questions, sometimes identically worded questions. But let me be very, very clear to Joe, Bob, and everybody else that has tried to frame it in this particular way. I'm assuming that you're talking about the budget resolution vote that we had on the House floor last week. In that budget resolution, which lays out the blueprints of how we are going to build the federal budget and how we are going to fill the federal, how we're going to build the federal appropriations process, the word Medicaid and Social Security were never mentioned once. So you're making a leap and a jump, saying that there was a cut. There was no cut. There isn't any cut. And in fact, I talked to a state legislator this morning on my drive who is very, very familiar from his private sector time with Medicaid. And we were talking about what was happening with the state of Michigan budget. And the state of Michigan the House has done some things with the state education budget and some other things that they're passing already. But the Senate is not taking up any of those bills, which, again, for those not familiar, the Republicans have a narrow majority in the state House now. The Democrats are in control of the state Senate. But Medicaid is a joint federal and state program, a joint federal and state program. And if we go back a few years to the time of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, the ACA prompted states to add people to the Medicaid rolls, but how they enticed them was they said, well, for the first period of time, we are going to give you the money that it's going to cost you, state. We're going to up that. And somewhere between 70 and 90% of whatever that cost is to the state, the federal government said that they would take a period of time and cover it. Now, at the time, there was a number of governors, Republicans and Democrats, and in fact, I'm thinking specifically of a Democrat governor of Tennessee at the time, who was waving some warning flags on this of what this meant for future decisions at the state level and what they were going to have to do. So Medicaid is not just a federal program, it is a state program, and it's also about state priorities. So if you're concerned about that, I hope you are reaching out to your state legislators as well. So of course I have empathy for the men and women and children who are absolutely needing this safety net. And that is going to be the role of the state legislature as well as the federal legislature to figure out how those truly vulnerable are going to be taken care of. Now, you insinuate in the letter that the president and my party are slashing these things while they had promised to protect them. Let's be very clear again. President Trump has been very clear that this is not to be touched, and he is not going to touch it. What is kind of interesting to me, I can almost hear the scoffs from a few of you folks on this. You seem to believe that Donald Trump is adhering to some of his promises, but not as others. And I can tell you in the conversations that we have had with people from the administration, there is no intention to be doing that. And then finally, I just want to hit on Social Security, because Social Security is something that is a problem that is looming for folks. I'm not saying this isn't Bill Huizenga, this isn't a GOP talking point. This is the trustees of the Social Security Trust Fund. They say that if nothing is done with the boundaries of the way Social Security is currently set up, in less than a decade, it's about 8 to 9 years, the trustees say that there will be a 21% cut to every single Social Security benefit check that goes out. That's a problem, folks. That's a huge problem. And what I'm afraid of is that we have people who are currently on Social Security who are getting whether it's $1,500 or $2,000 a month. How are they going to make ends meet when this 21% cut happens? That's automatically going to happen, not with a vote from Congress, doesn't matter who is president of the United States. That cut is going to be happening due to the trustees figuring out that there is not the money in there to take care of that. And that is something that I've been working on a bipartisan basis with a guy named Scott Peters, Democrat from California, and a group of us that we call ourselves the Bipartisan Fiscal Forum, BFF. Yes, we chose that on purpose. And the BFF has been proposing a bipartisan, bicameral debt commission to look at and make recommendations to Congress of how to handle all of the various trust funds that we have. And there's actually dozens of trust funds, Social Security being the largest of them, but how we are going to be handling those in the coming years, because there are some that are going to be in trouble earlier than Social Security and some that have a little longer lifespan. So that is something that I'm continuing to work on and will continue to work on a bipartisan basis. And last Congress, we had some significant movement on that. We were very, very close with the Biden administration agreeing to doing something. Unfortunately, the election and the political folks got a hold of it, and that was when the messaging took a very different turn from the White House. So we're going to continue to try and do that. But at this point, we're going to turn it over. We're going to take one of our live questions as well. I think it's Marcine out of Kalamazoo. It looks like you might have a Social Security question. So go ahead.
Well, sort of. I have a Social Security. I also have a disabled child that gets Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. My question is that I don't understand how you are going to do what you say you're going to do, which is not cut Social Security and Medicaid or Medicare, still have a balanced budget, try to do something about the deficit, and then put in those ridiculous tax cuts. I don't understand how you can justify the tax cuts. The only way to save Social Security is to increase its revenue. I think the cap needs to be removed or at least moved up. And if you're not going to do anything like that, and if you're going to insist on the tax cuts, how are you going to keep your promise to not cut Social Security and Medicare?
Sure. Stay on the line too, because I may want to get a reaction from you on this. So first and foremost, you and I might actually be in agreement of this particular part of the cap. All right, that cap has not moved in quite a while. By the way, the reconciliation bill that we had passed cannot touch Social Security, and I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but there's something called the Byrd Rule in the Senate. And the Byrd Rule says that you can't make policy changes in a reconciliation or a budget bill. You can only change numbers, okay? And that is not going to be happening. So that's a separate issue from anything that may have been done with this budget resolution and where we're going with that. So the tax cuts, as you were saying, here's the problem that's going to happen though, Marcine. If we do nothing and allow the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the so-called Trump tax cuts, expire, 70% of the expiring tax policy will hit people making $400,000 or less. Why is that important? Because that's the measurement that Joe Biden had thrown out, right? Well, 70% of the expiring tax policies is going to hit people below that. That is 40 million families will see their per-child tax credit cut in half. So the bottom 20% of our income tax payers had their lowest rate in 40 years with this. That's one of the reasons why we need to go and reinstate that particular tax program. So there's a lot that is going to have to get sequenced. I will tell you this: we will not be in balance this first year. There is nobody that has proposed a balanced budget. In fact, this was back when I first got into Congress, a guy named Ron Paul, Rand Paul's dad, Ron Paul, who is considered one of the most aggressive budget hawks that Congress has ever seen. He wrote a budget plan that would take 3 years for Congress to balance the budget. 3 years, all right? We're not anywhere close to doing that right now because we are blowing $2 trillion holes in the deficit every single year. And just for perspective, before COVID, we were spending about $4 trillion a year as a federal government. After we added all of the COVID funding and all of the new programs and all the things that were going on, this year we are spending nearly $7.5 trillion. And we have a number of issues here. Spending is absolutely one of those things that we have to do, and we have to go back in and make sure the government is running efficiently and effectively. So I may have lost Marcine. So let's go on. Let's go on to we've got another question that's coming up, and that is going to be from
Mary in Kalamazoo. She's got a question about the war in Ukraine.
Okay, Mary from Kalamazoo, go ahead. You've got a question on Ukraine. Mary, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for taking my call. Yes, I'm very concerned about what's happening with Russia and our alliance with Russia, which, my dad fought in World War II. I've never seen us being real allies with that country. And I feel like we kind of thrown Ukraine under the bus. And I just would love to hear what you have to say about that, because I'm reading Navalny's memoir right now, and the way people are treated in Russia as far as free speech is not the way we handle it. And I don't want to see us have Russia be our biggest allies versus our traditional allies that we have had relationship with for 40 years.
Okay. Well, appreciate that. There's a lot there. Let me just reiterate, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, I believe, is illegal. It should never have happened and was a huge problem. And early on, I was asking the Biden administration to authorize the MiG-29s to be transferred from Poland. They refused to do that. I also was requesting that the Javelin system, an anti-tank system, be transferred. They refused to do that because, as Joe Biden called it, it was a small incursion, or minor incursion, sorry, let me get the word specific, a minor incursion into Ukraine. By the way, this was after Russia had invaded Crimea under the Obama administration, and we didn't do enough to push back. So that is a huge. Russia is not our friend, right? They are an economic adversary, and they're a political adversary, just like China, just like a number of other countries. There are significant problems with Ukraine. Ukraine is widely understood to be the most corrupt country in the Western world. And I had a chance last summer in Paris when I was there on a trip with Nancy Pelosi. I was in a meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. And I got to sit across the table from him and tell him to his face why I voted against the supplemental bill that was the $60+ billion additional that was going in. And what I said to him to that point is, I said, Mr. President, I deserve, I need to go and look at my constituency and my voters in the eye and be able to assure them that you are doing everything you can to tamp down corruption, to make sure that waste, fraud, and abuse and skimming is not happening. And I need you to give us more evidence of that so that I can go back and explain that to my voters. Interestingly enough, unfortunately, Nancy Pelosi kept trying to cut me off because she didn't want any of those types of questions being asked. And to his credit, he attempted to answer it through his interpreter and said we are continuing to work on that. I have huge concerns yet about what was happening with Ukraine. So the latest, though, and I think it was Nancy, correct, is who I have. Nancy, I'm not sure if it was, if you had seen the latest today, President Trump had issued a statement saying that if Russia doesn't stop bombing Ukraine, he was going to re-up a number of bank sanctions, energy sanctions, and other sanctions that some have been in place, but have not been enforced, and that the Biden administration wasn't enforcing it. And if anybody wants to question that, please go back and look at our testimony with Anthony Blinken in front of our Foreign Affairs Committee, which I also sit on, where those of us on the Financial Services Committee write many of those sanctions bills. And the State Department and Treasury under the Biden administration was not enforcing the sanctions. And Europe was buying Russian gas and oil and helping to fund the war in Ukraine, ironically. That was a huge problem because we didn't have the political will, the Biden administration and Europe didn't have the political will to actually enforce the sanctions that had been put in place. So I know this, again, we're going to try and go quick. We're trying to hit as many issues as we possibly can. So I do appreciate that question. Michael and Al again. Go ahead. I think you've got another Social Security question. Is that right, Michael? Go ahead.
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Yes.
Thanks for taking my phone call.
We're doing all right. We're having fun.
You've been very insightful, and this is very tough on you because you don't have the perfect answers for everybody and stuff. So look, I'm not a hater, not a supporter, whatever. The seniors here in Michigan.
I think that's called an American, sir.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm a patriot. I've got people buried in Arlington. Yes. But I'm not radical on that. So here's my question. Keep it very quick for you and stuff. People say, look, you can get through the Social Security, you can get through the Medicare, you can get issues taken care of, contact these people. Sir, that's not working. That's simply not working. You can try to contact Social Security, you can try to contact Medicare, these issues, you can't get through. My wife and I personally have spent over 40 hours on the phone, waiting. My neighbors, the same thing. We can't get through. You stated earlier at the beginning of this that you have people in your office that can help seniors. Like my wife and I are both disabled senior citizens. We worked our entire life. I was teacher, coach. My wife was a teacher, administrator. We worked our whole lives, but we can't get any help because we can't get through to anybody or to communicate with anybody. So my question to you is, how would you be able to do this now with all the massive layoffs or firings or whatever you want to call it? How do we do this? There's people that need to get through, need help, and can't get it.
Yeah.
How do we sort of solve that?
Yes, great question. And I think we might have your phone number through the system, Michael.
You do.
We will contact you. Okay, we will contact you specifically, but for anybody else as well who has a question like Michael has that is having a problem getting through to folks
this is a major problem. This isn't just myself, sir.
Oh, I trust me, Michael, we have almost 100 open cases in the office of people that we are currently actively trying to help get through to Social Security. And that's one of our main functions as an office is to do that. Here's part of the problem. When COVID hit, literally everybody from the federal government went home to work. And they have not come back to office. And that's been something that has been demanded by President Trump to get everyone back to work, whether it's in Washington or whether it's at these other offices. Now, the efficiency of that is always problematic, right? And that is an ongoing struggle. Here's one of the problems. We have not done a sufficient investment into technology, and they oftentimes are working with old equipment. And so that is something that we have tried to work on as well. But we also
one of the biggest federal things has sort of outdated data, electrical, computer support, technology. Is that correct?
That is a big problem, yes. And we know that the IRS and Social Security and organizations like that They literally have truckloads, semi-truckloads full of mail that have not been responded to. And that's, again, because people have not been physically back in. And we know this because we have to go and get sometimes cases that get searched out and figured out. So we were able to help do that. But interestingly here, GAO estimates that that there's improper payments that are happening that are all over the place, and so it's trying to have to go through that. We have to gain efficiency on this. But again, the reconciliation, this charge that there's been a massive cut to Social Security, our budget resolution and the things that have been going on aren't even able to touch it. So that hasn't been the case. It's just, I'm afraid, good old-fashioned inefficiency of bureaucracies. But Michael, for you and for anybody else who's listening, if you go to huizenga.house.gov, that's our website, and with that, you give us your name and address and a way to contact you, and what the nature of the casework or the problem is. We will then get in contact with you, and so we've got your number. We will be calling you. But for anybody else that is listening, we want to hear from you and try to help navigate that problem. It's unfortunate that our office and every other congressional office and both of the senators' offices have to get injected into these things. But unfortunately, the inefficiencies in the bureaucracy get in the way of serving the public that they are supposed to be serving. So we're going to work on that. We're going to go to Terry in Holland, who has an immigration question.
Green and other Democrats broke into song on the House floor, prompting Republicans to vow to strip them of their
Terry?
assignments.
Yes. Oh, all right. We're hearing, sorry, I heard a little crosstalk in the background. Not sure if that's TV or somebody you're with or what, but go ahead.
There was a minor disruption, and he was removed.
There's somebody who's multitasking. He's on a town hall and having a robust conversation in the background. So Terry, go ahead, please.
That better?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. Yeah, I was watching TV and listening to you. I asked, what is the problem with the people not knowing what illegal means?
I assume you're talking about what's been happening on our border right now, and I just saw a note out from Caroline Leavitt, the spokesperson from the White House, where border crossings were at their lowest level in over 40 years. That I can tell you, Terry, I have been to Eagle Pass. Many people might remember the 14,000 Haitians that were underneath the bridge in Eagle Pass. I was there the week after they had all been cleared out. But as I'm standing on the bridge to Mexico, and we are there with our own Customs and Border Patrol, we're literally watching people within plain sight just walk across the river. And I was kind of surprised why Customs and Border Patrol wasn't like more exercised about this. And I said, aren't you guys going to go get them? And he's like, sir, no offense, but they're not running anywhere. They are coming and turning themselves into us. So they know where they're walking. They've been given instructions where to go. They know what to say and who to say it to. And as one guy, this was at a different transfer spot where I had a supervisor there, and I could tell that his presence was sort of clamping down on the questions or the answers I was getting from some of the Border Patrol agents themselves, who, by the way, are all Hispanic, most of them that are down there, not all of them, but a vast majority of them. The supervisor says, you know, I'm going to go take a drink of water, guys, for about 20 minutes. You just answer any question that he has. And and it was the floodgates opened. And as one of them said to me, he said, I feel like I'm a travel agent sometimes. We're giving them this documents that they have to appear in court, which we know they're not going to do. We have to put them on a bus, a plane, or a train, send them wherever they basically want to go, and there's a huge problem. Well, that has stopped, and nobody should be surprised that was paying any attention or that voted in this election that Donald Trump said he was going to stop that immigration flow at the southern border. By the way, it affects us on the northern border as well. Here is why. Because they try to fill in all of the gaps in the southern border. They have voluntary 6-month rotations from the northern border with Customs and Border Patrol agents. If they can't fill it with voluntary rotations, they then do mandatory 6-month rotations. And as I talked to one of our Border Patrol agents in Detroit recently, I asked him, I said, has that impacted us here on the northern border? He said, absolutely. How could it not? And he said, I can't do my job because we're trying to cover too many things. And by the way, this is a fascinating and sad statistic. 2/3 of all of the people that have been captured that are on the terrorist watch list haven't been captured on the southern border. They have actually been captured on the northern border, coming in from Canada. And so we know that we have a problem. That's a very evident problem on the northern border, but we have a problem on the southern border as well. So, all right, I appreciate that. We are going to go to Mike and Vale in Berrien. So I think you had a Medicaid question as well. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Is this Yep, we sure can. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, my husband and I are Social Security, and we are watching our pennies. We also have Medicare, but I'm also concerned about some people I volunteer with through the Area Agency on Aging. The people I have contact with have worked their whole lives, raised children and grandchildren. They are on Social Security only. They have no pension. They have they're living in HUD housing. They are on Medicaid, and they are really concerned that as these things get nipped away, their payments won't be processed in a timely manner. And also, as staffing is reduced, I'll be gentle about that, they are afraid that those things won't be taken care of, and eventually they won't be able to stay where they're at or get the care that they need. How is this? You explained a lot already about the need for reduction, and I, as a business person, educator, I am very aware that there is a need to watch your money, but this massive slashing and closing of offices, I don't see how this is going to help to resolve the problem. I can only see where it's going to exacerbate it. What are your comments on that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate, well, first of all, I appreciate you helping out in your community. That's great. In fact, my father sat on the board of our local Area on Aging when he was after he was a county commissioner up here in Ottawa County, so I'm quite familiar with it. Again, going back to any of the actions that we have taken in Congress, the Social Security is not on any part of the budget reconciliation. You may be talking about what you were talking about, cuts and closures. Are you talking about DOJ? I don't know. Hopefully she's still with us. Val, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Val?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
right.
yes. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, is that what you meant about concerns with DOJ and what?
Yes, it is. It is what I meant. I'm thinking of the help that I received from the Social Security office in Benton Harbor when I first retired in 2020, and getting my Social Security activated. And as they talk about these Social Security offices being closed or staff reduced, I'm just concerned that there are going to be people like some of my clients through Area Agency on Aging, they're going to slip through the cracks. Suddenly they're going to find themselves without the means to cover their housing or the means to get the medical care they need or to be able to get food on the table. And right now, my husband and I, we are doing okay. So that is what I'm concerned about. And I'm really ticked off about the fact that the president has appointed somebody who wasn't elected who can go in and do all this slashing of staff and also have access to a lot of personal information. That's in addition to these other questions I presented to you. So I've got a lot of angst, and hopefully I'm hoping the Congress will stand up and say, yes, you are allowed to do this, Mr. President. No, Mr. President, this has to go through Congress. Is that something that Congress is willing to do?
So, okay, you got a whole lot there. So let me try to touch
been building
on
up over time.
Oh yeah, yes. So let me just again reiterate: Social Security is not being touched. All right, we have a social moral obligation to the folks that are currently in Social Security. It's not being touched by Congress or the president or anybody else. Now, it will get touched by the trustees if nothing is done within the next decade. All right, just so we're clear on that. DOGE is not taking unilateral action. It doesn't have that authority. Despite what you might see on a tweet or whatever else, a number of the cabinet secretaries I've served with, Kristi Noem, Sean Duffy, Lee Zeldin, others that are heading up these agencies I actually served in the House of Representatives with. I've talked to them. I talked to Sean over this past weekend, Sean Duffy at Department of Transportation. As you can imagine, obviously with a lot of the crashes and concerns and discussions about what's going on there. What DOGE, I believe, has a role in going in and identifying a lot of those areas of concern and problems. And they've uncovered a lot, frankly, already. But it is up to those administrators to actually go in and fulfill the plan, all right? So as they are going in and having discussions about staffing, I will fully admit, I think Elon Musk has tweeted first and thought second sometimes, and it's been he has plunged ahead without necessarily knowing and understanding what he legally has to do or what he is going to be doing. But these agencies are making their own decisions. They're not DOGE's decisions. DOGE may have suggestions on that, but they are not in charge of that. And by the way, when you were talking about the personal identifiable information being somehow at risk, every single person that has any access to that is authorized. I've had a direct conversation with Scott Bessent, who is the Secretary of the Treasury, about all of the IRS and all of the personal identifiable information. He, meaning Secretary Bessent, is in direct operational control of all of that. At one point, there was 2 people who were inadvertently granted some access that got pulled back within about 24 hours, and none of those people were named Elon. So there is I believe it's getting pushed out there with some other motivations. But this is going to be a perfect opportunity to take a poll question. We want to know from you, and again, we've got thousands of people that are on this poll or on this call right now. And here's the question: do you support President Trump's proposal to end taxing Social Security benefits? President has said that is a priority of his. No tips on tax, no tips on a couple of other things, but one of those was ending the taxation of Social Security benefits. And so if you would please press 1 for yes, you agree that Social Security benefits should not be taxed, or 2, if no, you believe that Social Security should continue to be taxed. So again, the poll question is: do you support President Trump's proposal to end taxing of Social Security benefits? 1, if yes, you believe that they ought to end taxing of Social Security benefits, or 2, no, that we should continue to tax Social Security benefits. So while we're on Social Security, and I'm glad we had made this a senior focused call today. We knew this was going to be a lot of Social Security questions, those kinds of things. So we're going to go to Rosemary again in Kalamazoo, and I think you've got a question maybe about COLAs. Is that right? Go ahead.
Are you talking
Rosemary,
to me?
are you there?
Yeah,
Okay.
are you talking to me?
Yes. Well, if your name's Rosemary from Kalamazoo, yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to know, I appreciate what you do, and I was wondering if you were going to run for governor. I'd definitely vote for you. But my question is that Social Security is given, a cost of living raise, but then they turn around and raise the payment for Medicare. So basically, you don't really get a cost of living raise. Why do they do that? Why don't they, if they're going to give you more money, why don't they do that and justify, the difference between the two so that you have some extra money?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and again, hopefully you're taking part in our poll question that we just did, and I'm going to actually repeat that if that's okay. The question we're asking is, do you support President Trump's proposal to end the taxation of Social Security benefits? Again, press 1 for yes or 2 for no. That actually fits right into kind of what you were saying. It feels like they're giving on one hand and taking with the other hand on that Medicare. And, they are independent programs and agencies, and they have to operate that way. Oftentimes, I no longer have my parents, but I remember sitting down with mom and dad and trying to figure out this labyrinth of what Social Security and what their Part D was and all the different things that were coming at them, and it was very, very complicated. And so I guess I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately, Rosemary, as to why they give with one hand and then take it away on the other. But we certainly, you are prompting me, and this is one of the reasons why we love getting conversations with that. So Social Security and Medicare are not connected either administratively or on the policy side. But I'm going to look into that, and if we will, I don't know if we have your contact number or info, but if you want to log on to huizenga.house.gov and leave us a note about that, we can certainly get back in touch with you on some more information. So appreciate that, Rosemary. Thanks for calling in. And then, again, I'm going to ask this as we're wrapping up here, and we've got about 10 minutes that we're going to be able to continue to go. And by the way, we have had thousands of people that have been participating today. So I appreciate your willingness to do this and spend an hour with us this afternoon. I know this may not be satisfactory to some who would like to just create a scene and be disruptive, but we know that this is extremely effective for reaching people who have issues and concerns. So I'm going to say a couple of things again. *3 if you have a question and comment. *6 if you would like to sign up for the Huizenga Huddle. That's a nonpartisan official publication that's approved by House franking, by the way. And then the other thing that I want to make sure that is go to huizenga.house, HOUSE.gov, and please give us your comments, or if you have a casework issue or whatever else. And then I'm going to ask again the poll question, because we've had a lot of discussion today about Social Security and incomes and how seniors are going to make it and that kind of thing. So the poll question again is, do you support President Trump's proposal to end taxing of the Social Security benefits? Press 1 if yes, you agree at ending the taxation of Social Security benefits, or 2, no, you believe that Social Security should continue to be taxed. So we're going to go, I believe it's Virginia in Benton Harbor. So Virginia, are you there with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, ma'am, thank you, and go ahead.
I appreciate the job you're doing, but I'm also very concerned about the safety of our girls, because we have girls out there who are being injured and raped by all these men who are playing in girls' sports, and it needs to end. Are you going to?
Yes.
Is the bill going to be brought back to make it permanent? I know the president has signed an executive order.
Yes, the president did sign the executive order, and in fact had one of his guests there was a young lady who was suffering from traumatic brain injury from
I saw
incident.
her there, and I saw all those people sitting on their hands. And if it had been their child, I'm sure they would not have appreciated it.
Virginia, I think you're absolutely right on that, and that's why I support the president and what he has been attempting to do. We had a bill, actually. You were asking about what else we're going to do outside of the executive order of the president. There was a bill, H.R. 28, it was called the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, that passed the House of Representatives, by the way. I voted for that. I believe there were a couple of my Democrat colleagues who also voted for that. But it failed in the Senate because it needed 60 votes, and they could not get enough. I think somebody can check that. Well, okay, I'm just being told that I thought John Fetterman had voted for it, but apparently not. So there was no Democrat votes in the Senate that had that, and what it did is it specifically clarified that a recipient of federal education funding violating Title IX's prohibition against sex discrimination, if the recipient operates, sponsors, or facilitates athletic programs or activities and allows a person whose sex is male to participate in an athletic program or activity that is designated for women or girls. And we've seen some public spats about this. The governor of Massachusetts and others have decided that they're going to try and fight this. Quite honestly, this is common sense in my mind. To quote President Trump at the joint session the other night, common sense is becoming a common theme. I just don't understand why not everybody is seeing that. So Virginia, I appreciate the call, and we've got another question here. We're going to go to Pamela in Zealand, who has a Social Security question. Pamela, are you there? In Zealand. Okay, third call for Pamela in Zealand on Social Security. Just making sure you're not on mute because we cannot hear you. So I think we may end up having to move along to somebody else. We're going to go to Hans in Holland. So is Hans with us?
I am, thank you.
All right, go ahead, Hans.
A couple of questions in our limited time. One, you've said that the Doge folks are basically subject to department heads' oversight, but you ignored the fact that for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the new administration, the Doge people have been given unfettered access to databases. They've been sending emails via OPM direct to employees asking them to justify their jobs, and they have been giving people termination notices. And I'm particularly concerned with the National Park Service that most everyone favors, and yet we're being told we're going to have losses of people there. So the question is, why is Congress allowing this to happen? I realize in the last 24 hours, the White House has changed its tune and is now trying to control the Doge people, but I'm still concerned that we are, as Congress representatives, are allowing the Trump White House to run roughshod over our preferences. And then separately, I don't know why Congress never provides means tests for benefits. The Social Security tax question, I appreciate for the seniors who may need it, but for those who don't, why isn't there a caveat that we should tax Social Security benefits for people whose income is above a certain level? So there you have it. Thank you.
Okay, let me start with that one, since that's been kind of a common discussion and theme that we've been having. And as I said to, I can't remember, I think it was like Margot or somebody earlier. Yeah, Warren Buffett's going to be fine. All right. Why Warren Buffett can't even voluntarily opt out of receiving Social Security benefits is baffling to me. I've actually brought this up a number of times. Can we not even have a voluntary program that allows people who feel secure enough that they don't need to have Social Security? By the way, guess who fights me on that? AARP. which is stunning that they won't do that, because we're trying to hopefully jointly preserve this program for everybody. So anyway, Hans, we're not going to be in major disagreement, I don't think, on how we deal with who receives the Social Security benefits, as you were suggesting about means testing it for a billionaire or having a cap on their Social Security income. Now, I don't want it to be another just willy-nilly tax that's thrown on them. But if they can voluntarily say, "Hey, I'm good. I don't need this," that to me makes a lot of sense. But I also think having some of those caps increase would also make sense. So we did kind of cover the DOJ and how it is not able to act unilaterally. And when some of those notices had gone out, I know Kash Patel at the FBI, I know Sean Duffy at Transportation, I know a number of those cabinet officials sent out their own emails saying, don't send your action reports and those kinds of things to those folks. Send them to us. And so that has been a practice right from the very beginning. It's just gotten more, I think, more focus on that. You brought up the national parks. There's 1,000 probationary employees for the National Park Service that were let go. However, jobs are coming back, and National Park Service is going to be allowed to hire up to 7,700 seasonal positions. That's 30% higher than a three-year average that they've been having. So what they're trying to do is shift this, and again, this is the efficiencies of how do you get seasonal coverage without necessarily having to have full-time employees doing it, and that is part of it. So there's going to be up to 7,700 seasonal positions that are going to be trying to get filled for this summer at those national parks. So, and I know we're approaching our time, but I wanted to address one last thing. Again, pound 6 if you would like to join us or join in to get the Huizenga huddle. Then we're going to have one last chance at that poll question. Do you support President Trump's proposal to end taxing of Social Security benefits? Press 1 for yes, you support ending taxation of Social Security benefits, or 2, no, you do not support ending that taxation of those benefits. Emily online has saying, how do you represent all constituents, not just Republicans? Well, I appreciate that, Emily. And yes, we go through a series of actions every 2 to 4 years, sometimes 6 on the Senate side, where we choose who our representatives are going to be at the federal level, local level, national level, state level. My job as a representative is not to necessarily agree with everybody. And it's also, frankly, not to just go out there and stick my finger in the wind. I get hired to use my experience, my judgment, and then to make tough decisions. And then I get a very public job review every 2 years. And I will note that this past year, I was a little over 55% in the district. The president also won in the 4th congressional district, which is quite varied. It's rural. It's urbanized. It's very blue. It's very red. This is one of those purple districts that 2 years ago Gretchen Whitmer won. But I won it. The president won it. He won the state. He won the Electoral College. He won the popular vote. So yes, I am sympathetic and empathetic, and am working with the president to move in the direction that he wants to move. And I believe that is where the majority of the voting public in America wants our country to go. They're certainly put him in charge of doing that. Where I think we see the most sort of where the rubber is hitting the road, Emily, and how we serve constituents is exactly what I was talking about earlier with casework. All right. And again, huizenga.house.gov is where you need to go. We are there when someone is having a problem. It could be with their passport for spring break. That's happening right now. We're getting all kinds of calls and emails on that. It could be a problem with their Social Security. Michael was having a problem with that. It could be a VA benefit that they're having a problem with, an SSI. It could be an IRS problem. We have huge backlog of IRS issues because we can't get the IRS to move either on things. So we are there to be an advocate for you in that times when you need the government to work for you, not against you. I thoroughly do enjoy hearing from people when they're in a respectful manner. That is great input. I think this call was great about that. And I know we intentionally took people who we suspected weren't in political agreement with me, because I want to hear that. And I want to know what issues that they have and that what we can address. But we may come to a different conclusion. I hope we have a lot of the same goals. We might have some different goals. Virginia has a different goal about, men playing in women's sports. I agree with Virginia. Some of you on this call might not, and that's okay. But we're going to have to understand that we're going to agree to disagree on that. So you've been very generous with your time, everybody. We hit that hour mark. And again, we are going to continue to do this on a fairly regular basis. By the way, I'm not the only representative that is doing these telephone town halls. A number of my colleagues, both Republicans and Democrats, some of you may have heard about Hillary Skolton's telephone town halls. She's only doing telephone town halls as well. And it is because we are able to reach tens of thousands of people all in one time, and we try to cover as many bases as we possibly can. So appreciate your time and effort, everyone, today. Thanks, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.